Hello and welcome to UK Cowboys Fans TV. I'm Paul, and I'm also joined by my fellow compatriot, all from Scotland, Mr. Lon Callan. How are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad. I just hope my internet connection stays on long enough for this episode.
Yeah, we'll try and make it short. I think we did have a special guest, but I think there's been a wee bit of a miscommunication set up. So, um, don't know if we are going to have a special guest on the show, um, but hey ho, the show must go on. So as you may know, as you can tell by the title of the video, it's the pregame show against the New York Giants. And yeah, so how are we feeling about this, Lauren?
I think, the bookies are all saying that we're the underdogs, but to be honest, I think this is an NFC East game, so anything can happen.
Yeah,
But I don't think the Giants. Yes, the Giants have beaten the Tennessee Titans, who are actually. I think they're missing an AJ Brown. And then they won last weekend as well. But I don't think anything special. They're certainly not. They don't deserve to be one of the six remaining unbeaten teams in the NFL at the moment.
yeah. I mean, it's such a weird scenario, especially. I think they're just basically going based on their winning record right now because the Giants right now, obviously they beat the Panthers, and I can't remember who it was they were playing in the home opener, but
The
are they,
Titans.
the Titans? But are they really a proper 2-0 team? Is that what
No.
are they really like? Is statistically looking like their wide receiver core have not really caused them much threat or anything like that, or et cetera, et cetera. The main threat seems to be Saquon Barkley, but we will touch onto that just shortly. So, um, let's just kind of jump into the news and updates then, which I don't think there's really been much besides. Let me see here. Let me just get the video popping up, and there we go. Yeah, so the news and updates. I think the only thing we can really report right now is that Jerry Jones came out in the media, as Jerry does, in Jerry fashion. He really likes to stir the pot between quarterbacks, between Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush. And I don't know if anyone else has seen it from home or whatever and that, but it's just I don't know about you, Lauren, but I kind of feel it's just causing more. What's the word? Stirring the pot, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think, you know, he is just trying to, obviously the more that like anything that he gets mentioned is obviously brand Cowboys. It's promoting the Cowboys, and it's getting people talking about it on the mainstream. Obviously, who was it? Steve Young, I think, this week was talking about how Cooper Rush. Dak can learn stuff from Cooper Rush because he learned stuff from who was it, Steve Bono or something like that
Mm,
back in the day. So I think there is an element of just getting the Cowboys out there and making them still relevant. Not that I think the Cowboys are irrelevant. Obviously, I think everybody had written us off after week one, but we're back in. With a great week two there. Um,
yeah, but I mean, don't get me wrong. Like in terms of that week two game against the Bengals, there was so many positives you can take away from that game. But that third quarter and fourth quarter, it was the Bengals did readjust and look to they changed their game plan essentially,
yeah,
and they kept us down to 3 points, and that 3 points was the most crucial one, which was the winning field goal. So, if anything, we need to make sure we go into this NFC East game against the Giants and come out guns blazing. Make sure that we stamp our authority, quite essentially.
yeah, yeah, and I think obviously our wide receiver core is boosted by the fact that by all accounts, Michael Gallup's going to be playing this game. Assuming there's no setbacks in training this week.
Yeah,
But
and saying that, another news update is obviously, I don't know if you might have seen that. I think there was a minor report that Micah Parsons missed practice today. I could be wrong, but
yes,
there was a report that came out today that he's missed practice today. Are you concerned about that, Lon?
not at the moment. Basically, again, I've seen something with Jerry saying that he has congestion. He's got the beginnings of a cold or something like that, but as yet is tested
Yeah,
negative for coronavirus.
yeah,
So as long as it just stays to be a cold, I mean, yeah, it might only be 90% of himself, but 90% Micah Parsons is still going to be
yeah.
enough for this Giants offensive line, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, let's dive into the Giants' offense and defense. Actually, well, we'll start with our offense first, right? So
Yep.
let me just get everything updated. So guys watching at home, be sure to leave your comments, get your thoughts in. Let us know what you think. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, etc., etc. It does a word of good, but be sure to get your comments because we would like to know what your thoughts are this upcoming game against the New York Giants. Do you think we stand a chance? Do you think Cooper Rush is going to do it? Do you think Danny Dimes is going to cause any threat? We would love to know. So get your comments in, folks. So yeah, the Cowboys offense. So obviously, Cooper Rush is now our starting quarterback. Scored a couple of touchdowns. He was getting the ball moving. Our offensive line, which I thought was the biggest improvement throughout that whole Bengals game, especially Tyler Bayadish, I thought was the biggest improvement overall. Like
Yep.
his block on Tony Pollard for Tony Pollard to the block on, sorry, let me rephrase that. The block on Eli Apple to help Tony Pollard to gain that 47-yard run or screen pass. Depends how you want to word that. But either way, he created the pathway up that field and it was beautiful to watch. And even extending on that play is the inside block from Tyler Smith. Like
Yep.
he was the one that sealed the linebacker in the inside. So even though and your thoughts are exact same as mine in this, like Joe Philbin is currently on the hot seat for the past 2 years, but it seems that this week he seemed to get things clicking. Like so,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
you're 100% right, and I think the main thing as well that why our offense worked as well is that we didn't have any pre-snap penalties. You know,
yeah, that's
all
the
I think all the penalties actually were defensive this week, and
no,
you
I
know,
think there was one offensive penalty, and I think that was on Simi Fehoko, and he was the only guy that went offside. But there was nothing on the offensive line. There was
yep,
no holding penalties. There was no false starts. So the offensive line have drastically improved and turned around significantly. Don't get me wrong, like I, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Like, I still feel that a Farniak is still the weakest link, obviously, and there's going to be a dilemma going forward. Like, do we obviously with Connor McGovern coming back? What do we do with the left guard position? Because it's like we know Farniak is going to be fighting for his place, but who's the guy's going to replace him? Are we going to shift Tyler Smith back inside and put Jason Peters on the left tackle, or do we stick McGovern and keep Smith on the outside? Like, what do you think?
I've actually seen something today where they were saying that so far Peters has been practicing both at the left guard and the right tackle position. Now that would suggest that Tyler Smith they're willing to continue with this. At least in the short term, they're willing to continue with this to see that see if they've basically got a tackle out of this. And that obviously this is potentially he maybe is starring as a tackle as opposed to there was questions as to whether he would have won the starting left guard spot over McGovern anyway in training camp if Tyron Smith was still playing. So I think I agree. Farniok is the weak link, to be honest. and maybe that's because he is he is the backup center, he is the
Yeah.
backup guard as well.
Yeah,
And it's
he's pretty much the pawn piece within the offensive line right now, where it used to be Connor McGovern, it used to be him, but it now
yeah,
seems to be Matt Farniak right now. Because looking at the stats, he gave up 6 pressures in that game against the Bengals, which is a bit of concern in the pass protection. Although there was some good elements to Farniak's game, he did show some good parts of his run defense. I will say that, but
yeah,
if you were to kind of grade overall the offensive line, like going forward to this defense against the Giants, you can't help but feel very confident because right now their defense is not looking great now. Because as of right now, Leonard Williams is currently questionable. Kayvon Thibodeau is still questionable,
yeah.
and their left defensive end, Aziz Ujulari, is also questionable. So 3 of their main starters of their defensive line is very questionable going into this game right now.
Yes. I mean, obviously they've got the extra week or extra day to, obviously today's the first day that we actually have to give a practice report on.
Hmm.
Same with the Giants because we're playing on Monday night. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's talk Thibodeau might be back this week, but I mean, and yeah, we certainly didn't like the way he had to exit preseason with that injury. It wasn't
Yeah,
a nice block,
yeah,
but
yeah. But by all means, like, despite their rivals and stuff, but you don't want to see a player go down in that fashion. Like the injury that picked up to him was a horrible tackle, and it should have never have happened, essentially.
yeah, yeah,
But in the all perspective, though, it does help the Cowboys out. In terms of because like he would have been an absolute threat within their defense. So,
yeah. And I
um,
mean, if with Leonard Williams as well. I mean, if you go back a couple of years, Leonard Williams was an absolute nightmare for us. The last time that we had question marks on the offensive line, he I think it was the Giants game towards the end of the season a couple of
mhm.
years back where everybody was out injured. We were practically starting second string guys, and he was constantly in the backfield. So he is your true sort of one technique for the Giants defense. I suppose he's maybe even a nose tackle. I can't remember if there's a 3-4 at the moment or a four
I
three.
think currently just now, yeah, they're playing as a free front. So they've got the left defensive end, nose tackle, and Dexter Lawrence, and the right defensive end, and Leonard Williams, who I would, in theory, he is really more of a free tech guy, and you're
Yeah,
using Thibodeau as your forte. So they're kind of running that type of hybrid style switch between a 3 and a 4. So, um, give or take, really. Um, but either way, it's very questionable because I'm looking at the PFF gradings, and I know a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the PFF and stuff like that. But as of right now, the New York Giants are ranked 26th in their run defense with a 50.9 grade. In terms of like, if you want to compare that to like the Dallas Cowboys and their run defense, we're ranked 19th. Uh, yes, 19th with 55.8, which I think is a bit of a. We can talk about our defense shortly, but anyway, but in terms of the Giants defense, they're not they seem to be degrading down because they seem they really had a bit of struggle with Baker Mayfield at one point during their game with the Carolina Panthers, with McCaffrey there and stuff like that. So it'd be very interesting to see what Kellen Moore does if we're going to utilize the run game even more this game, due
yeah.
to with their like defensive front with their injuries and stuff like that. So do you feel like we can maybe expect more of Zeke, and this might be the game for him to reach that 100-yard game, and even Pollard to even break out as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, one of the things that was actually quite good about last week's game is that we did stick with the run. Kellen Moore didn't, he emphasized the run and then built off that so that yes, and obviously the guys are riding high. Things like the ballsy call on 4th and 2, to go to Noah Brown. You've developed Noah Brown. Noah Brown is showing that he can do something as a weapon. Where obviously when we were talking last week, we were saying that in week one nobody had stepped up to be that number two to give CD Lamb some space as well.
Yeah.
We've got that now, but I think yes, you've got to. One of the reasons, obviously, the Giants have gone up the last 2 weeks. They'll have gone against Derek Henry and they'll have gone against Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
They're obviously two big name running backs. I think McCaffrey's been injured the last couple of years, but he's probably the equivalent of Zeke, and then we've obviously got Pollard as well. So if we can continue with the sort of thunder and lightning running back tandem that we have, and then throw in a few things like Kevontae Turpin on the end around the jet sweeps, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That should open things up against their front.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just looking at the stats for the Tennessee game. So the Tennessee Titans only managed to get 93 yards rushing overall. So Henry had 82 yards, and their backups and even Ryan Tannehill got some yards. But with that, if I go to let me see, get the Carolina game up. We're looking at the total of 103 yards. So, no, sorry, 146 yards. So, Christian McCaffrey had a 102-yard game. So, he had a plus 100 game. Baker Mayfield kind of rushed, and Deonta Foreman went for 2 carries with 9 yards. So, and that's kind of why we're seeing that degrade from their defense. But in terms of the Russian side of things, let's talk about well, before we do that, let's go through some comments actually. Because we've got some comments coming through. So our good friend Steve Baker Mountford, how are we doing, sir? Says if Micah plays and Cooper plays like he did on Sunday, we're in for a shout. If by Monday Micah turns out to be out, it becomes less likely. I tend to agree because Micah Parsons is pretty much the pinnacle point within that defense. He is the heart and soul of that right now. Andrew comes in. Daniel Jones is terrible. Rush might be the better quarterback. Cowboys to win a low scoring one. I can't help but agree with that. I totally agree with that. Like me and Lauren were talking about this just before we went live. It's like I would rather have Cooper Rush than I would Danny Dimes. Easily. Obviously our good friend Chris, Cowboy Chris, he's also referring to Micah Parsons with the cold. Elizabeth Richardson coming in. Cooper is a good quarterback, just needs to warm up a little bit quicker. He has a rifle for an arm, but he rushes at times. Rush can get it done. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Like, especially against the Giants, I don't see why not. Then also, we've got our good friend Joe from Italy. Buonasera, signore. I think that's how you say it. I do apologize if I didn't say that wrong. Say that correctly, Joe. But thank you again for swinging by. I believe the winner of this game will be the team that can run the ball better because both teams have bad passing QB. So we've got a wee bit of conflict of opinions when it comes to the quarterback position here in the comments. What do you think, Lauren? Like, do you think Cooper Rush is a good quarterback? Or
I think obviously he's better than a lot of people have given him credit for. I mean, you don't get to be a 2-0 starter. Even as a backup, you don't get to be a 2-0 starter in this league unless you got some capabilities. I think the one thing that he's got on his side is he knows that the worst that's going to happen is Dak comes back and he gets benched. So, he's playing with a little less fear than most other people probably do, particularly if you're the starting quarterback. And I think you saw that in some of the throws. I mean, obviously there were throws that he made last week that Dak had made in the first game got picked off or passes broken up by the Buccaneers, but Cooper Rush wasn't afraid to go for that same throw. And obviously nothing terrible went happen last week. The only turnover we had was Dalton Schultz after he got tackled, fumbled the ball. And that's the only turnover we gave up last week. I thought they were very clever. They were keeping Cooper Rush on the run. They rolled him out a number of times, which that just buys him a little bit more time. Normally, and it actually gives you the emphasis that the talk is he's not as mobile as Dak or Will Greer, the backup to Cooper Rush. But it just shows that there is an element that he can get outside, take a 3-yard run. There was a couple of times where there was nothing there. He could have checked down or whatever, but he decided to take the safe 3-yard run.
Yeah.
And at least keep the sticks moving, which this is go back to what Bill Parcells said. He is a bus driver, and you rely on your weapons. Yeah.
And again, this kind of goes back to the credit of the offensive line as well. Like they should overall they all showed much improvement. Like we mentioned before, there was 0 penalties on holding, 0 penalties on false starts. So of keeping that momentum going into this week against the Giants in MetLife Stadium on Monday Night Football, you can't help but feel that a little bit more positive, despite that Dak Prescott is out right now. But even still, it's even with the backup quarterback and Cooper Rush, I still feel confident that he can still put points on the board more so than Danny Dimes. But I'm just looking at the defensive stats. Like I said, we'll move on to the defense shortly, but I'm just looking at their stats right now. So they've only got a total of 3 sacks on their defense, mostly coming from their linebackers and safety. I don't know how you would pronounce his name. O'Shane Examiz. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I do apologize. Then there's Tamon Fox and Julian Love. Those are the 3 guys I've managed to pick up sacks. There's no player in that defensive line have actually contributed to anything in terms of pass, QB hits or anything like that. So for the offensive line, this is a bit of a good positive for pass protection.
Yeah. I certainly, I don't rate the Giants pass rush. It's certainly not like the years gone by where you had OCU, Minnesota, JPP, all that sort of thing. Now, if Thibodeau's playing, maybe you see something from Thibodeau that earned him the 5th.
That's the question, though, Lawrence. If Thibodeau does play, right, theoretically, what percentage is he going to be fit? Is he going to be at 100% Kayvon Thibodeau, or is he going to be just is still suffering from that injury, and we're just putting him? The Giants are just putting him in there just because, if I was the Giants, I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't risk losing out, putting your star defensive player from this year's draft and potentially cause him to pick up more further injuries. So I don't know. I'm probably much more conservative in terms of player protection than most people out there. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think, it just depends on how Brian Dable wants to manage the team. If he's concerned about getting the results or whatever, then he'll throw Thibodeau out there. I think if you are going to play him, you'll play him periodically. Situational pass rusher or something like that. I don't think you'll see him playing 95% worth of the snaps. They'll use him sparingly to start off with. And just try and get him blooded, if nothing else, into this game as well, so that they can build on it in the forthcoming weeks. It'll be interesting to see how they use him. As with you, I'd rather the guy was 100% rather than you come back in. there'll be an element of mental as well, that he'll be looking for people coming down to go low on him as well. You know, obviously that'll be in the forefront of his mind as well. Um, so anything that, you know, more he's out there, the more he'll be worrying about it, and obviously that'll play into our hands. So I think if I was Dayball, I would hold him out and sort of only use him sparingly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I was in their shoes, I'd be like, yeah, I would kind of utilize Triple if really, really, really necessary. Like, but I still don't think he's going to cause much threat because of the injury that he's picked up. I think he's still in recovery, pretty much. But, um, but let's just go back to a couple of more comments before we move on to our defense. And saying that actually, so Joe, no, it wasn't Joe. So Valenti's already put his score prediction in. Big shout out to Andrew Valenti, who's always been he's always been part of the UK Cowboys fans for a long, long time. Good to see you. He's won for 1917 Cowboys. Yep, I think it's going to be a close game as well. Uh,
I'll leave it, but I think
Yeah,
we're gonna,
we'll get our score predictions on our fantasy lounge later on, and that. And saying
yeah,
that, I might be a little bit ill prepared for the fantasy football side, so bear with me on that, right? Bear with me, folks. Um, so our good friend Benny, hello Benny, good to see you again, Benny. I don't know how you pronounce Cashrajon. Like, please, if I do not pronounce your surname correctly, I do apologize. We are I'm trying my best.
yeah,
The Cowboys defense is one of the best in the league. Yes, you are correct. As of right now, our pass coverage styles, we are ranked second, right behind the Buffalo Bills. Our run defense, which I was quite surprised about, Lauren, we were ranked. Let me just double check. We are ranked 19th, which I
yes,
thought is a bit of a slap in the face, to be perfectly honest with you, considering we've managed to keep like Joe Mixon under 100 yards. Well, in fact, under 70 yards. And I think Leonard Fournette was under 100 yards as well. I could be wrong, actually, but even still, it's like I think our run defense is not getting enough credit.
yeah.
To
I agree. I agree.
I think
I think
19th is, I would say maybe in the 12 to 15 region would be a fair statement,
yeah,
but
yeah.
not 19th, I would say.
No, I think probably again we're going on the back of the first week against Tampa Bay, where you know they were running student body left, student body right, where they're ending up they're pulling guards left, right, and center, and they're basically focusing in on our defensive backs like Anthony Brown, Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs obviously now has shown that he can tackle, you know, like he did in the second game there. But obviously, I think Tampa, they did rack up something like 140 team yards against us in week one. Obviously, we brought that down against the Bengals. And I think, you know, we're working our way back up there. I think if you'd looked at the results at the end of week one, I think we would have been down near the bottom end of the league. But I think, you know, we're slowly working our way back up. So, you know, if we carry on this trajectory, then you know, there's nothing to say that we won't be top five, well, certainly top five in defense this season. You know, barring any major injuries, touch wood.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So it's, yeah, hopefully there's no injuries that pop up. But so anyway, let's kind of, well, in fact, there was one more comment that came in from Joe. He's saying he's not heard anything regards to Dalton Schultz. Neither have we, which is a good sign.
yeah,
So again, touch wood on that. Hopefully, Dalton Schultz will be all good to go because we will need him against the Giants. We will need him for sure because we need that. so much security blanket. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I think Noah Brown's still going to be that number one guy because obviously he's had the more experience working with Cooper Rush. They will have that more relationship compared to likes of Dak and Dalton. So I think you if you're on your fantasy football side, I would say expect Noah Brown to get the ball a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I mean, from what I'm hearing, it all depends on how this extra day of rest is. There's nothing seriously wrong with him, thankfully. Which when you saw him going down and grabbing his knee, you thought, oh my God, this is ending, perhaps. But he was back on a couple of plays later, took himself out again. By all accounts, it's a slightly less severe injury to what Zeke had last year. It's the same style of injury. It's the PCL sprain, but maybe if you hold him out of this game, there's potential that you'll have him ready back at full fitness week 4. So again, this is maybe one of the reasons. Obviously, there's all this talk about we've dropped Dennis Houston, who we've released on Tuesday. He's back on the practice squad today, but there's potential there that you might have to bring Sean McKeon up from the practice squad because at the moment you're relying on Hendershot and Ferguson. Now, I think they're good, but are they ready for the number 1 tight end role? I'm not ready to anoint them yet. The question as well, obviously, Dalton is looking at getting a long-term contract, so he won't want to be out for long. But at the same time, how many of these guys are, serving their franchise tenders and they're trying to make that extra yard. They're trying to get, do what they can to put the tape out there so that they get the extra deal, and then they go and they rush themselves back from injury or they play through injury and they actually make the thing worse. So I think if we are going to sit him, I'd sit him out this week and then have him back ready for week 4.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it all depends how this extra day of rest that we have, because it's if it was Sunday, I believe he'd be off. But because it's Monday, there's a good chance he'll play.
Yeah, like I said, it's like I just hope Schultz is all good to go. We hope you're fit and healthy to go, Dalton. And yeah, so with that being said, let's move on to the defense. So defense. So as you know, Micah Parsons had an absolute stellar of a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's now 4 sacks into the league. I think he's now leading the NFL currently just now in terms of the sacks.
Leading the NFL, tied for first with tackles for loss as well, if I'm correct as well.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, all of it, any other tackles, that's it. He's only got 4 tackles in total. That's
Yep.
it, and it's all came from sacks and tackles for loss. That's it.
Yep.
So, so let me just bring up the wee banners up so I can show you. So, so currently just now our sack leaders right now, you've got Micah Parsons with 4, Dorrance Armstrong with 2, Leighton Vander Esch with 1, and Dante Fowler Jr. with 1. And currently, and this is the interesting part, is the actual tackle leaders. This is interesting. So Leighton Vander Esch with 10, Donovan Wilson with 10, Malik Cooper with 9, Anthony Brown with 8, Anthony Barr with 8, Diggs 7, Demarcus Lawrence with 7, Jordan Lewis with 6, Osa Odigizua with 5. Then it's Micah Parsons with 4. So like we said, 4 tackles, 4 sacks. There's no run defense tackles because they keep running the ball away from Parsons.
Yep.
And you know who's
Yep.
making up those tackles in terms of that? It's like Demarcus Lawrence and Osa Odigizua and the linebackers.
Yep.
They're the ones filling up that gap. So even though Demarcus Lawrence is not on that list, he's like lower than that, but he is still contributing so much to that team. But here's my question to you, Lauren. It's like, how confident do you feel with our run defense against Saquon Barkley right now?
I mean, I think Saquon Barkley we've managed to keep in check in all the games that we've played him. You know, even the year that he was the first 2 years that he was out in the league, you know, he was setting records against lots of teams. Seem to remember what was it? One of the games it was he had a 40-yard run on the first play and then something like 20 yards over the next 15 carries or something like that. So the Cowboys have managed to keep him under 100 yards every time we've played him. Now, I think part of that is perhaps our offense has been good enough that at points, you know, the Giants have actually had to go away from the run and focus on the pass, and that's taken him out of the game. Whether that happens with our offense, you know, depends on how our offense plays. But yeah, I think we're going to see a steady dose of Saquon Barkley. But I think we've got the guys. I'm liking the work that Bahana's put when it's a running down. He's
Yeah,
he's he's
I
letting the
was just
linebackers
about, I
scrape
was
the
just,
ball. So
yeah, I was
uh,
just about to say Quentin Bowana. I don't know if you may have noticed when during that Bengals game when pretty much Joe Burrow was pretty much in his own end zone, like it's between the 6 and 8 yard line. Quentin Bohanna was having a field day with Cordell Folsen, the left guard for the Bengals. He was having a field day. He was getting into the right position, and he actually forced Joe Mixon to go to the outside, completely shutting the door in his running gap. So I noticed that it was the same. Like, if anything, like when you like the stats don't really tell the true story here. Like Tristan Hill, DeMarcus Lawrence, Neville Gallimore, and also Diggy all had a good game, despite looking at the stat sheet. If you go and look and watch the film, they were getting into their gaps. They were closing the door for Joe Mixon, closing the door for uh, Joe Burrow, and they had to force him out the pocket. And one of the things was we had to put pressure in the middle to force him out the pocket, and we did that. And but also more so in this game, it's like they actually had a lot less reps because Dan Quinn opted to switch it up to the kind of NASCAR defensive line, which by putting Van Der Esch and Micah Parsons in the middle, which was quite bizarre to see. I don't know if you may have noticed that, Lauren.
yeah. I mean, I just think, you know, obviously we were seeing things. Micah was coming flying around the edge. That was bringing Joe up into the pocket. And then, you know, obviously there was pressure right in his face as well. So this defensive line can do its job. As I say, the run defense I think is getting better. I'm happy with the way the defensive line is playing. It's allowing the linebackers. It's not letting any offensive lineman really get to that second level and get to the linebackers. So the linebackers are getting it scraped to the ball and make the tackle on the ball carrier. So you know, I think we'll keep Saquon Barkley. I would even go ahead and say that Saquon Barkley won't get 100 yards this game.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm kind of feeling that confidence about that myself, to be honest. Like, especially with our interiors right now. Like, don't get me wrong, we did have a bit of issue during that Buccaneers game where we were struggling to get off our blocks at certain points, but there, like the difference between Tampa's offensive line compared, like, well, in saying that, Tampa's offensive line were in tatters in terms of the injury and stuff like that, but they still managed to go out there and perform. Whereas the Bengals, who completely um like restructured their offensive line compared to their Super Bowl win, which only contained one starter from that game of the Super Bowl, which was Jonah Williams. Like
yeah,
all the rest of them were new guys like Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and also Cordell Folsen, who's the rookie. But in terms of like we definitely play to our strengths and we use speed against this offensive line against the Bengals. Don't think that's going to be the case with this game with the Giants. I think it's going to be a more of a battle of one-on-ones in this game when it comes to the defensive line and offensive line. Like, I think Demarcus Lawrence is going to have a tougher job ahead of him in more the run defense. And I
Yep.
think Parsons is not going to have a much easier game in this one. I'm just going to check the Giants injury report if there's anything in regards to their offensive line or the offense right now. So bear with me. Let me see. So currently, just now, their center John Villacino, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's questionable, and the backup center Nick Gates is out. So as it stands right now, it's Andrew Thomas, Ben Bredson, Mark Gallinowski, and Evan Neal are the offensive line that are pretty much are expected to play. So you've got Evan Neal, who's an absolute stud. Like, that was one of the top prospects going into this draft this year. And obviously you've got the other former first round draft pick in Andrew Thomas, which was back in 2020, I believe.
Yep.
So it's regardless what you think about the New York Giants, their offensive line, they've got some good players there. They're there to help provide better running for Saquon. I mean, we've kind of seen that recently with the two games because currently just now, Saquon Barkley is on 236 rushing yards right now from two games. That's
Yep.
concerning. That's concerning. Like for us as the defense. So, but guys, give me your thoughts. Do you think our run defense is going to stop Saquon Barkley? Do you think we're going to isolate him to under 100 yards? Give me your thoughts. Get those comments in. We would love to hear from you. But yeah, Lauren, 236 yards. What do you think?
It is concerning, but I mean, I think we haven't given up a big run this season. Even obviously we've had the talk where there was all these outside runs with the Buccaneers, but I think that there's an element of rust because none of the defensive back starters had really played much in the preseason. I think, to be honest, the first game this season is pretty much a write off. It is almost like a preseason game. I think we're getting everything's beginning to gel. I think the defense is coming together as well. As long as we've got Parsons, we know that whatever side Parsons lines up on, the chances are they'll be running to the opposite side, and that helps Dan Quinn focus who he's going to send on that opposite side to shut down the lanes as well. So, as I say, I think we'll hold them in check.
Yeah.
And then you're going to then have to force them to go to their passing game. And obviously their passing game, they've got talent there. They've spent resources. Now we've talked about obviously
Yes, we
Kenny
have.
Golladay.
Yes.
Kenny Golladay, he's quite frustrated at the moment because he's not getting the playing time.
Yeah,
You've got
because
Darius Toney, who was their first round draft pick last year. He's effectively their fourth wide receiver this year. Their team, their leading receiver this year is
Richard James.
Richie James, and I think he's only so only something like 110 yards he's got so
Yep,
far this
yeah,
season.
you're spot on, and not far behind him
Um,
is Sterling Shepard with 105. So, and to even add to that, in terms of the receiving yards, Saquon Barkley is the third highest with 46. So when you really kind of put things in perspective, their passing game is not particularly that great at all, and it really does make you wonder. It's like, how on earth is the New York Giants 2-0? It really does answer that. It really makes you ponder that question. It's like, they're not the best team out there, but somehow they've managed to get the win. And to the point where when it comes to our defense, and we did kind of slightly brought this up earlier, is like our pass coverage defense is ranked second overall in the NFL. The only team above us and rightly so, it's the Buffalo Bills because they
Yep.
are looking hot right now. But for us, for like Trevon Diggs and Malik Hooker and everybody else, like they're playing, they're balling. Like
Oh, aye.
Diggs, but Diggs in that game against the Bengals, that saving tackle that on T Higgins, that was monumental for the Cowboys in that game.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even, I think the only major long pass that we've given up this season has been the Julio Jones one. And I think Anthony Brown was literally, he was a fingertip away from knocking that ball away as well. So, and the touchdown that we gave up to the Buccaneers as well, that was who was it? It was Godwin, I think, he made a hell of a catch, and if he just tried to make an ordinary catch, then it wouldn't have happened. So it's taken some sort of superhuman um, attempts to actually get anything against our passing defense. Um, Obviously, a couple of years ago when we had Mike Nolan, we were leaking like a sieve, but everything has
Yeah,
seriously
let's
tightened up.
not
So,
dive into the
well,
whole
yeah,
Mike
I
Nolan
know,
because
I know.
I'm still gonna have forever memories of that 2020 season for the rest of my life, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, I know, I
But
know. It's
I
it's hard
know
to get rid of.
it's very hard to get rid of. So let me just kind of go through more statistics here. So Daniel Jones currently right now under 2 games is 364 yards with a completion rate of 70.9. And let me see. He's scored 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. And here's the interesting part: he's been sacked 8 times in 2 games. So, so as if it's less than Joe Burrow, but still, it's still questionable.
Yeah,
So, I think when it comes to the run defense, that's where the Giants are going to be the strongest. But in terms of the pass defense, I think this is where Parsons, D-Law, maybe even Sam Williams, he will get some more game time in this game because obviously we don't know the condition of Terrell Basham yet, if he's going to return yet. Because,
well, Basham's on IR, so Basham's out for
yeah,
another 4 weeks. So,
yeah.
or before you can even think about activating him. So Sam Williams is going to get his snaps, and you saw he was already improving. I think there was a tackle for loss he made at the weekend there where the line was moving away from him. He could have gone further down the line, but he stood where he was. Noticed that the running back was coming back on a counter and obviously came up and made the tackle for loss about 5 or 6 yards back in the backfield. That
Hmm.
just shows that he's got the knowledge. It's just a case of putting all the tools together and learning when to deploy whatever moves he needs to do. And I think he's been there or thereabouts. He's had a couple of good preseason games as well. I think he's beginning to come into stride. So as soon
Do
as
you,
that happens, it will help.
do you think, though, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is Daniel Jones's last year with the Giants. Do you think
Yep.
he's now trying to kind of push out and try and get extended or try and get other teams to think? Because I don't think the Giants are that sold on him, to be perfectly honest, like going into the future, because it was a Dave Gettleman pick,
Yep.
essentially. They had better options of better players available in that draft at that time, and they decided to go for Daniel Jones, who a lot of people graded him as a late second round or an early third round draft pick.
Yep.
So, and this is no disrespect to Jones at all, but it's just like what people had him graded as. Um, but uh,
I have to agree. I mean, I actually went on record last year at one of the events that I turned up at that I said that I thought Daniel Jones would actually be the second best QB in New York. I think Zach Wilson was. I think that didn't really play out, but I think there were much of a muchness that Zach Wilson was actually probably the winningest quarterback in New York, but I don't think the stats were as flashy as Daniel Jones, but I don't rate Daniel Jones at all, to be honest.
I don't think many of us do, to be perfectly honest. I don't think many other teams think he's that. Even the Giants fans
Yeah,
and don't really like. He's not like. It's really like I'm trying to be not too much of a douchebag right now about him. Like really put him down as this, but at the same time, you can't help it because he's a Giant. Like it's just me being a Cowboy fan, but he he doesn't he's never really presented a threat as such. Anything he does get away with seems to be pure by a stroke of luck. It's no like it's by pure excellence by any
y-
means. If that makes
yeah,
sense. Like it's
yeah,
not like Tom Brady, who's pretty much a mastermind of the game plan, and he did that against us. Like he executed our weaknesses, even though it wasn't a high scoring game, but he used the quick passes to eliminate any um pass rush essentially. Like the screen passes to like um Godwin to
yeah,
right in the sideline. Like just get the ball quickly as soon as possible. And that's what killed us in that game, really, from the defensive side and defensive front. But where Daniel Jones, like he really holds on to the ball quite a fair bit of significant time, and he pays for the price for it.
yeah. And he's known as well. If you can get your hands on the ball as well, he's known to cough that ball up if they're hit for a strip sack in the backfield, or
Hmm.
he goes out and starts to take a run, and then of course you've got he'll go down in infamy, as much as Mark Sanchez with the butt fumble. He'll go. Daniel Jones will go down for the 80-yard run where he ended up tripping up himself. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
he's always going to be known for things like that. So
Like
um,
it
it's
really
little
did.
things like that.
It really seems like if you were to summarize Daniel Jones in one way, he fumbles himself over more than
Yep,
anything. Like fumbling over his own feet, fumbling within the pocket, fumbling within the passes, fumbling within the handoffs to Saquon Barkley, and that's happened a few times before. But going back to like Saquon Barkley though, I did notice this in his statistic. He has fumbled the ball this season already. Like I'm not going to put too much emphasis on it, but ball security is prime for this. So, and when you've got guys like Donovan Wilson, who is
yep,
the guy likes a him, if he gets down to that area and actually hits Barkley, rest assured he's trying to wrestle his arms and try and punch the ball out, regardless if it's a tackle or hit. He's still trying to get his fist in there. So,
yep, yep,
um, but yeah, so it's very interesting to see, like, just looking at the statistics, like the wide receivers, right? So, as we mentioned before, Richie James is currently the seems to be the main target man right now with 110 yards, zero touchdowns. Shepard, 105 yards with one touchdown. Then it's Barkley with 46. Then there's David Sells, the fifth. Kenny Golladay with 22 yards. Then there's your tight ends and Tanner Hudson and Daniel Bellinger. Um, it's not my like just to put this in perspective, in terms of the whole wide receiver core and tight end core, their whole total yards and receiving is 364.
yep. And I mean
So
that
when you
that's
break it,
180 yard. That's 180 yards a game, and
and that's yeah,
we gave up 199 to Joe Burrow, but then when you take off the sacks that we got off him last week, it was only
hmm
160. I think we can keep. I can if we can make them throw, then I think we're gonna keep them in check because we're just not going to give up the passes.
yep, yep,
So again, it's all about how we focus on Saquon Barkley. Um,
yep,
I think what the Giants are doing well, and I heard them talking about this on the one of the podcasts this week, is that Brian Daboll is obviously the architect of what the Buffalo Bill you're seeing with the Buffalo Bills at the moment.
hmm
He's not got the players that he wants. Obviously, with the Giants, he's inherited Dave Gettleman. He's Daniel Jones was signed 2 coaching staffs ago, if I remember rightly as well. So, this is this is now Daniel Jones's sort of third set of coordinators, and third head coach as well. So, um, you know, the there's no loyalty to these guys. As soon as they can get rid of them, I think they probably will. And unless Daniel Jones suddenly turns it on, then he's probably gone, and they're looking at starting again next season or bringing somebody else in. And what they are doing well at the moment is they've got a limit. They're only putting say 50% of the playbook that they had at Buffalo, but they're running it out of different schemes. So, but the plays, there's only say 75 plays. They're running it out of different formations, but those 75 plays, it's almost going back to like the Vince Lombardi style, where you practice those, you try and get you go through it so much that you perform those minuscule number of plays really well, so that that's your bread and butter. And then as and when he gets the players in, you're going to see him expand this playbook. But once you can focus in and see what the keys are on all of these formations and what have you, you'll be able to pick up what the plays are, and that should help us with the diagnosis as well for this defense.
Definitely. I mean, I completely 100%. Like, I think for like Dan Quinn and Aiden Dudley, like what they did for their starting for like the Bengals, I think they just need to do their due diligence in terms of how we're going to make Daniel Jones pretty much screw himself over, pretty much.
Yep.
But on that note, we'll just go on just briefly on its special teams. Then we'll do our fantasy lounge because obviously we know Brett Money Maher came out like we came out and won the game winner last week against the Bengals, and he's put my opinion of him somewhat on a down level now. Like, I'm actually kind of glad. Like, he's definitely improved as a kicker, but I still have this little tick in my brain, like thinking, okay, we know you can do the long ranges, but what about the mid ranges? Like, short range seems to be good. Long range seems to be good, but it's the mid range, like you're between the 25, like the 30s and 45 yards.
30 to 45 yards is a question mark.
Yeah.
And now, to give him his due, I think New York is always a hellish place to kick in. That stadium,
Oh
the
yes,
wind
especially in
swirls
that
around,
stadium,
so
and that's one. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Lauren, because if anyone knows like where the stadium is situated in New York, that takes in a lot of wind coming into the stadium, and that does play a big, massive factor in this game. So, but yeah, like what are your thoughts? You think Brett's going to be okay during this game?
I think he maybe is going to struggle because of the wind. He has struggled in the past there, and it's been that the kicks have been on target, and then last second there's a gust. The wind has swirled and it's taken it off. He's not been wildly inaccurate there, so I don't see him being 100% after this week. But I have to believe, obviously with the Saints last year, he was 16-18. He'd improved on everything. He spent a bit of time on IR, I think, at the beginning of the season. So obviously there was maybe something that he'd gone into the season with that was niggling at him, and he managed to get himself right.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's coming in, and I think he is improved. Having said that, and I mean, I saw the video that obviously you put on our chat the other night when we were watching it, and you did have to sort of take a second glance because it did look like it was edging towards the post.
I generally thought at first I didn't even see the ball like when I was actually paying more attention to the officials, what they were given.
Yep.
When I saw the arms going up, the two arms going up to indicate it was good, that's when I celebrated. I didn't even see the ball where it was. Then I watched the replay. I'm like, "Oh, God, that was close."
Yeah.
Like, I'm like see when it comes to field goals, I just watched I can't watch the ball. I can't bear it. Like that's how bad I get too nervous watching the ball. I'm more interested in seeing what the officials do more than anything, because at least you know that's more definitive. Like watching what it's either that arms up or it's arms across crossing over,
Yep.
saying no, it's not good. So, but he came through. He got the win. But here's the next question in regards to special teams. And like I said, we will go into the fantasy lounge, folks. And be sure to get your highs and lows when we announce the scoring for the players for this game against the Giants. Devontae Turpin, do you think he will actually get his first special teams touchdown?
I think it's possible. I think again, we've talked there again that the wind plays a factor now. That can mean that it looks like it's coming down. It looks like it's coming down in the goal line, and the last second it bounces on the 5 yard line. Um, but I mean, in games past, I mean, when we've gone up there, when we had Dwayne Harris. He got a lot of touchdowns there, and equally when we played him, he got when he defected to the Giants as well. I mean, he got a couple of touchdowns against
That's
us
right.
as well. So I think the Giants Stadium, I think if you actually look at it, I think the Giants Stadium is a location where a lot of special teams touchdowns actually
Yeah.
happen across the
Yeah.
league. It'd be interesting to see that if somebody actually has kept a stat on that. But I think you were seeing him, there was a couple of fantastic returns there at the weekend against the Bengals that, he got us into that field position both for the field goal at the end of the first half and the field goal to win the game as well. It was his returns that got us into position so that we could kick the ball late on as well. So um, I think 100% that, the he's just beginning to hit form, and it's going to get to the point where teams are going to end up kicking away from him. But you know, obviously the preseason game set a marker, and I think it's just a case he's got to follow that up, and before it really truly sets the alarm bells going off around the league that he is a dangerous return man.
Yeah. I totally, yeah, definitely. I mean, I will say this. I don't know if it might be this game, but I think I will say Turpin will get a special teams touchdown. I reckon, and yeah, yeah. That's what I really would got to see that. But finally, we're here.
Can I just bring up this point here from Elizabeth?
Yeah,
She's
sure.
saying that we should have kept Greg Zerline. Have you seen his stats for this season? He's already missed week one. He missed an extra point and he missed a field goal. I would quite happily stick with
Yeah,
Bet
like
Moneybar.
yeah.
Uh,
I think with in terms of the money and stuff like that, in that perspective, I was kind of more in favor of Kai Forbath more than Greg Sirline when we had both of them on the roster.
yep,
Like,
yep,
because we paid a lot of money for Greg and he was still lingering about with that injury. And we knew he was not 100%. And he cost us quite a lot of games last season. One being the Raiders. I was at that game last season
yep,
and I believe it was the Bucks season opener last year as well.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
so,
I think. I mean, he potentially stopped us being the number one seed last year.
yeah, you're
Because
right. Yeah, yeah,
those two games alone, and I think there was
but
other games where we certainly finished. We certainly in most of the games we lost by less than 7 points, and invariably Greg had missed a kick in those games.
yeah. I mean, Well, I'll tell you what though, just to bring up Elizabeth's point, and thank you for the comment, Elizabeth, much appreciated. Like she did mention, like didn't give him enough time to heal from the surgery. I do agree with that. Like we should never have put him in that position in the first place. We should have had someone else to come in and do the job, really,
Yep.
because it was a risk factor. So I do feel bad for Greg in a way, but he is 100% now, as of right now, and he's still producing missed kicks like that. So I'm kind of glad we didn't retain him and we let him go and we brought someone else.
Yep.
Even though our off season and during training camp fiasco when it comes to Kessels has been an absolute disaster, but and it's so bizarre for me to say this, we might actually do have the best solution right in front of us, and that is,
Yep.
and I'm crazy to say this, but Brett Maher could be that guy.
And I think the way Cowboys, obviously they were much maligned that we didn't even have a kicker on the 53. We were having to elevate the kicker as a practice squad
Hmm.
elevation.
Yep.
But by even having him on the practice squad for that first week, by the time that we've now elevated him to 53, but under the rules, because he wasn't on the 53 for that first week, he could have an absolute stinker and we decide that we're going to move on and pick somebody else up, and we're not guaranteeing him his salary for the entire year. So,
Hmm.
you know,
Yep.
and if anybody's had a look at over the cap recently, obviously middle of the preseason when we were all talking, the Cowboys had 20 million under. We were 20 million under the cap, and we had all this cap room. As soon as you go to a regular season, the way they calculate the formula changes. We're only about 11 million under the cap now, so we are still needing to. And you're going to be talking about bringing guys in as
Yeah,
replacements and
and
what
that is
have
going to
you.
be a
And
guarantee. We're guaranteed there's going to be, like, especially like so the O line. Like if one of the other guys was to fall down, we might not have enough boys to bring in backups. We may have to make a trade somewhere to bring someone in. Who knows? And that will
yep,
affect the cap, like depending who you bring in. But on that note, let's finally jump into the fantasy lounge. I'm actually quite excited about this one actually,
yeah, let's go.
because this is very. I've got the stats here and it's very interesting. So, without further ado, let's go to the fantasy lounge. Okay, folks. So this is now your time to get involved. So I'm going to bring up the statistics up right here. Well, not the statistics, the actual projections of the players that has been selected for this game, um, based on NFL.com scoring, and let me know what your thoughts are in terms of who is going to be there. What do you think? So Cooper Rush is 14 fantasy points. Ezekiel Elliott's 12, Tony Pollard's 10, Lamb is 10, Noah Brown 6, Daniel Jones is 15, Barkley is 15, Richie James is 6, and Sterling Shepard is 9. So let me so,
Right.
so guys back home. So all we need you guys to do is give us either a higher or a lower, or you can say boy oh boy or oh boy. So whatever way, so boy oh boy means higher, oh boy means lower, but you can either say higher or lower. It's entirely up to yourself. But anyway, we'll start with, like I said, Cooper Rush, who is on 14 fantasy points.
Right. I think
And
we're good.
before you say anything, Lauren, I will be taking note of our little league here,
Yeah,
so I'll be recording everything. So Mike's got a record of it as well, so
that's
we've got
fine.
that.
That's fine. I don't mind being on record. I think so Cooper Rush, 14 points, you said. I think that's going to be higher this week.
Okay, that's a
I've
higher.
got faith. I've got faith in him. My scoreline for this week is 28-13 Cowboys. I think it is going to be a
Oh,
double-digit win.
we'll do the
So
score predictions
we'll
after.
come back to
Yeah.
that, but I think it is going to be a double-digit win, and I think it is going to be
Hmm.
two touchdowns by the run offense. I think we'll get another couple of passing touchdowns. So I think that bodes that it's going to be higher.
Okay, so we've had a couple of comments in coming in already. Joe is saying higher, and Steve is saying higher, which is good. I am going to also say higher as well. So I was kind of thinking if they mentioned maybe the 16 to 17 mark, I would have said level, but I think 14 is a little bit too low, so I am definitely going to say higher. So
Yeah, I mean,
next up,
he was about 15 and a half last week, I think,
yeah.
on one of the fantasy teams I was on. I don't know if it's the same scoring, but
Mm.
yeah, that would suggest it is higher. So
Yep. So next up, we have Ezekiel Elliott on 12 fantasy points. This is a tough one because obviously the past couple of games, Zeke's kind of averaged about 50 to 60 yards per game with no touchdowns to kind of show for it. So he is on average between 5.6 points per game, essentially.
yeah,
So already Joe's coming in. So no, Joe. Steve is coming in already going higher for Ezekiel Elliott. What about yourself, Lauren?
I'm gonna say that he gets one of the touchdowns, and he probably gets about 50 to 70 yards on the
Okay.
ground,
Wow.
little bit through the air. So again, I'm going to go higher.
Okay, and Joe, finally comments in and actually says way higher on that scenario. Um, I'm gonna I'm actually gonna go the opposite direction on this one. And it's not because of Zeke. I think it's more down to Kellen Moore's game plan more than anything. I think it's going to be more on Tony Pollard in this game because of the speed factor with their because with their defensive line kind of lacking and stuff like that. But it's it could, but I will say lower, but I hope I'm proven wrong. I really do. So I'm going to say lower for Zeke in this one. I think
Right.
it's going to be maybe 45 yards, no touchdowns. He's just basically going to run down that defense. Then it's going to be a pass to some Noah Brown or something like that, then score. So I think that's the kind of system we're going to expect to see. But yeah, Joe's made the comment is saying Kellen Moore will probably make it lower. So you can understand where I'm coming from with this one, Joe. So you can see Elizabeth comes in higher. I agree with Lauren. Awesome. So, but yeah, so we've got two highs for Lauren and one high and one low for myself. Okay, so now we talked about Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, 10 fantasy points, higher or lower.
I,
It's a tough one.
it
It's
is.
a tough one.
It is, but given that I said that we're going to get a couple of rushing touchdowns,
Like,
I'm going to go higher on that one as
yeah,
well. Only just higher. I don't think it's push, but I think you're
yeah,
probably talking 12 to 13 points, I would
yeah.
say.
That's the ballpark I'm thinking because I can see Tony getting maybe 60 yards, well, between 50 to 60 yards and a touchdown. I think
Yep.
so. I'm going to say higher in that scenario as well. We do have from Steve. He's going even. He thinks that's a fair split, and that's a fair and yeah, totally fair. Joe comes in with higher, which is great. He thinks Tony Parr's going to go higher. So yeah, we're both going to go high in that one. So I'll
Yep.
take a wee note of that. Here's the next one.
CD
CD
Lamb,
Lamb.
10 points.
CD Lamb, 10 points.
So Lamb had was it 5 receptions, 60 yards last week?
Give or take, yeah.
Yep. So that's 2.5 points plus the 6. That was 8. Go on, I'll go push on that one, I think.
Even push, okay. And you're not the
Yep.
only one. Steve has also went even in that one as well. So we've actually got two pushes on CD Lamb because that is quite a hard one, and I tend to agree. I think, and even Joe is on the
My God.
board. I think we're all in agreement that CD Lamb on 10 fantasy points is kind of, let's see, we're going to be 100 yards. or it's going to be like a 40 yards and a touchdown, which makes up your 10 points. So I think that's pretty fair. So if Lamb was to get a touchdown and 40 yards, then you've got your 10 points. But I'm just trying to think how that works. So I think it's between, if it's 9.5 and above, or 10 and below 10.5, that becomes even. So you use the
Yep.
half measures. If it's within that region, it becomes even. So that's how it tends to work. So we've got an even here, and we've got an even for Lorne. Okay. Next, we have Noah Brown on 6 fantasy points. I know I am going to say this from the get-go. That is a higher, without a shadow of a doubt, higher.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
like when you really saw that the chemistry that Noah Brown and Cooper Rush had in that game, it has to be higher. It has
Yeah.
to be. Like he was pretty much the primary target for that game for Cooper Rush. So I don't know what everyone else is thinking. Oh, crikey, the comments are flying in right now. So Steve's went higher, Joe has went higher, and Elizabeth has went higher. So we've got 4 highs in a row. Lauren, are you going to
Yep.
make it 5 in a row?
I am, and if nothing else, if Michael Gallup's back as well, that's gonna take the top of the defense. You got CD Lamb who can do it all, and then you've got Noah Brown who will be the unnoticed guy. Even though he had a statement game there against the Bengals, I think he'll be the third receiver this week if Gallup plays, and I think that's going to be easy to beat 6 points.
Well, now that you mentioned Gallup, and I'm surprised we didn't actually mention this during the offense, is like the potential return of Michael Gallup for this game. I'm surprised we didn't even mention that, so we do apologize about that. But I do have Michael Gallup's fantasy projections here, and it's not on the board, so you are seeing it
Yeah.
firsthand when I announce it. He's been projected to go for 9 fantasy points. 9.09 to be exact.
I would say it's even on that one. I would go with that.
I am going to say lower in that scenario because we don't want to rush him into the game too much.
Yeah.
I think we still want to uh, give the ball more to Brown. Like we don't want to. It's the same with the whole Thibodeau thing for the Giants. I think we will just use him when we really need to. I don't think he's going to break out any big massive plays, but he's just there on the field to kind of keep the defenses thinking essentially. Um, so let's see the comments. So we've got Steve on lower, Elizabeth has went even, and Joe says lower. I don't believe he won't see the field, which is a fair point. Absolutely fair point. So I went lower. Did you say even?
I said
Lauren?
even. Yeah, so we're either lower or even. So
As I'm writing our score sheets right now, because I'm writing L for loss, so L for lower, H for high, and E for even. And the way how yours is marked out, it's like he. Right. So okay. So I think I won't do Dalton Schultz because I think we've covered enough of the Cowboys offense. We'll leave
yeah.
him out because we do want to kind of target some of the Giants players right now. So as of right now, I've got Daniel Jones here on 15 fantasy points. 15.
I can't against this pass defense. I can't see it myself. I'm going
No.
lower on that one.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Guys watching right now, what do you think? Daniel Jones high or Daniel Jones low? Okay, Joe has got his yep, the comments are coming in, and
Yep.
it's lower. It's definitely lower. Joe's went lower. Steve went lower. Um, any more comments before we move on?
Lower for
Elizabeth has
Elizabeth
came
as well.
through, and she's saying lower. Okay, we've got two lows, and that's your first low of this series, Lauren. Everything's been
Yep.
highs and evens. Okay, Saquon Barkley, 15 fantasy points also.
Given that he has been a threat both in the passing game and as a runner
that's
as
another
well.
thing as well. It's not just rushing yards. There's receiving yards as well, and don't forget, Saquon Barkley is the third ranked wide receiver in terms of stats for the Giants with 46 yards. Make of that what you will, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going to go higher. I see the comments are coming in that we reckon it's
Even spread,
either
yeah.
lower or even. I'm going higher.
Elizabeth has went higher. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going higher just purely. I think it's going to be 18, 19. I don't think it's going to be 15, 16. I think it is going to be a little bit higher, but I don't think he's going to blow it out the park and go 25 or anything like that.
Okay. All right. Well, so you're going higher.
Yep.
For myself, I'm going to say lower. Because I have faith in this defensive front seven. I have so much faith in it. And also, you need to think about this X factor. That is Donovan Wilson. I think he's going to be the X factor in this game where it comes to if he's running downfield to meet Saquon Barkley, he's going to look to strip that ball and make him fumble. And that will give him negative points if he does fumble as well. So I'm thinking from that perspective.
There is. I mean, I'm sort of basing it on, say, 60 yards rushing, if 20, 30 yards of passes, however many receptions that is as well that he takes to get those, and maybe one touchdown as well. So that's why I'm going to. It's just slightly higher, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, well, we'll quickly get the last two done on the road. So there's been 10 names we mentioned. Well, there's going to be a total of 10 names we're going to mention tonight. There's 2 left, and we'll do Sterling Shepard on 9 fantasy points.
I don't see it happening, to be honest. I'll go lower on that one.
I will tend to agree with you, my friend. Guys, what do you think? Sterling Shepard higher or lower? And Joe, as Cameron went interesting one, he's went higher. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Steve's gone even.
Steve's went even. Yes, he has. And if Elizabeth, you're still there, we would like to know what your thoughts are on Sterling Shepard. And anyone else is watching right now, if you've just joined in, you're actually near the end of the stream just shortly, but we would like to know what you think. But we'll let you create the comment in eventually, but we will move on to the next player. So, and the final player we're going to talk about tonight is Richie James, the leading wide receiver for the New York Giants. He's only projected to score 6 fantasy points.
He's the leading receiver. I would say
I'd say it's even.
Again, I'll go slightly higher than even. So I'll go higher, but
okay. I'm gonna go even in that one because when you really, I'm just basing it purely on average because 110 yards divided by 2, that's roughly about 55 points. So that's 5.5 points. So, it's in that region ballpark of being even. So I'm gonna say even in that one.
Right.
Okay. So, do we have any more? Steve's went higher and Joe has went higher. All right. Yep. Okay. Well, with that being said, that wraps up the Fantasy Lounge and
your score for this week, Paul.
Oh yes, I forgot about the scores. So yes, guys, get your final score predictions in, guys. Thank you for reminding me, Lauren. Without further ado, what do you think, Lauren? What do you think the score's going to be?
So, as I said, I think it's going to be a double-digit win for us. I think it's going to be 28-17.
28-17 for the Cowboys. Ooh. Okay. Let me see. We've got Steve coming in, and Joe coming in with their scores. Joe's went Dallas 30, New York Giants 22, and Steve's went 20-17. Cowboys winning overtime. Oh no! Don't do that to me, Steve.
No.
Please don't. No overtimes. Please,
I've
no.
seen
For
enough
the
overtime games
love of
this
humanity.
season.
For the love of our hairlines, no more overtimes, please. If you have any more store predictions, please get them in. I'm going to say, and I'm inclined to agree. I think it's going to be a double-digit score, but I'm going to go Cowboys 34, Giants 14. We're going to win by 20 points.
Sounds good.
Yep.
I'll take it.
But,
and Elizabeth come in with 28.
Oh, there we go.
20.
28-20. So, Elizabeth's coming with the 28-20 Cowboys. Much appreciated with the comments, folks. Like Mike always says, in case anyone's wondering, Mike is currently on holiday. He's going to be kicking his feet up with the family. And as you may notice, I'm actually hosting here tonight. But you will come back and see us on Tuesday for the post-game show. But before we go, we need to give a big shout out to our sponsors and our good friends, our fellow content creators. As you can see here on the screen, we've got the guys from Talking Cowboys, which we had Rob Phillips on Tuesday there. We've got all the likes of SB Nation, all the Blogging the Boys with RJ Ocha and everybody. You can catch myself on there with Meg Murray for the Wolves team. We've got Law Nation, J-Tuck, a good friend of our show. Everybody, please go and check everybody out. They do an amazing content. Please should go and check them out. And finally, big shout out to our sponsor, Cowboys Experience, for the ultimate meet and greet, stadium tours, game tickets, and tailgating experience. If you've not traveled with Cowboys Experience, we do highly recommend it. And we do provide you a discount code, which is UK Cowboys. All you need to do is mention UK Cowboys. And Lauren, what do you do if you get mentioned UK Cowboys?
You get free stuff and you get free chocolate pudding as well. Pudding,
maybe not so much in the chocolate pudding, but you'll get a lot of free goodies when you use the package deal. And saying that about a package deal, for next year for our UK Cowboys fans group, we do offer a travel package for next year in courtesy of Cowboys Experience, which includes game tickets, tours, the meet and greets, the whole shebang. And when we say what else is included, there's possibly a good college football game included and much, much more. So Be sure to go and check out our Facebook page for more details or contact Cowboys Experience for more further information. But with that being said, it's a good night for me. It's a good night for Lauren. Lauren, would you like to say goodbye for us and we'll call it a night?
Yeah, so have a good weekend, folks. Go Cowboys. I'll be watching high school football on Friday night, college football Saturday, NFL Sunday, and a little bit on Monday / Tuesday as well. So it's a long weekend for me.
We can't complain. Football is actually back pretty much nearly every day. We're talking about it, what number hours. But anyway, guys, we hope you enjoy the show, and hopefully we'll get that dub, and we will see you guys on Tuesday. Go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys.